Hello, welcome back. We are taking on some of the last bosses in Act 4 today. Not all of the last ones, but a lot of them. We're getting real close. And these ones are getting a little bit tougher. By the way, I'm Savalian. I make videos about games, development, and creativity. I also stream on Twitch, and by the time this video is out, I think we will have started playing a multiplayer brutal run over on my Twitch stream, so you can go check that out if you would like more V Rising. But in our last video, we just defeated Voltatia, and were able to make some power cores and stock up on gold bars. And then after that, I took a little break to do a rift incursion. I mentioned I'm not going to show all of the rift incursions because I do a couple of these to farm shards, and I think it's just a bit boring. But I've graduated to tier 2 rift incursions at this point, which have tougher enemies, drop the greater Stygian shards, and also enemies can drop bat hide, which we'll need for some of the last set of armor. And also, a little fun thing, the blood souls in the tier 2 rift incursions actually refill whatever your current blood is to maximum. So that's kind of neat. If you have some 100% that you want to keep around, you can do a tier 2 rift incursion. Hopefully don't use up all your blood before you're done, and then you got a little refill. I also found a 100% Dark Temptress here, which is fantastic. I love these lanies. I actually forgot to actually convert her to a servant, so she just kind of hangs out in the prison for the rest of the game. But sorry, I got her anyway. I like her anyway. At some point, you will also want to explore Dracula's garden area of this zone so that you can send servants there, because that's where you can use servants to farm greater shards, and you gotta explore all the zones before you can send servants to them. And you'll definitely want to get as many greater Stygian shards as you can for the passes and for the highest level weapons. I think you also use them to make the top tier jewels, if I'm remembering correctly. I did some more vampire chores, harvesting my garden, making whetstones, which I need for scourge stones, which I need for radium. And everything is sort of chained together at this point in the game. I was able to unlock some of the tier 2 passives. I would highly recommend getting the V-Blood passive as early as you can. I think it's a tier 2. Because that will just make all the rest of this a little bit easier, and then all the passives you can unlock honestly will make the rest of the game easier. And the next boss is my least favorite boss in the game, I think. Even less than Krieg, though I had a lot more trouble with Krieg in retrospect. But the next boss is Lord Styx the Night Champion. He lives in this big crater which has just been hanging out here this whole time. We've just never visited it. And this crater is full of blood crystals, which we will also need to mine for later. We cannot fight Dracula without mining these blood crystals and defeating Styx and using the blood crystals to make some certain items. There are some higher level demon creatures around the outside of the arena, and most importantly, you've probably noticed if you wandered in here, there's a big dragon that circles around the arena. You can't see it really, you can kind of just see its shadow. But he does drop huge puddles of fire on the ground that you'll need to avoid, and he will do that during the fight as well, so be on the lookout. Lord Styx the Night Champion mostly sucks because of the gargoyles, but let's start at the beginning of the fight. So he patrols around the middle of this big crater, and as long as you stay close to the middle, you shouldn't pull any additional adds from the outside, but there's going to be a lot going on, so you might wander a little bit too far. Just be ready. Styx he's like a big powerful vampire or something, so he's got a lot of blood focused moves, which I don't think we've seen very many of up to this point. He does a pretty large AoE of these swirling projectiles that I would recommend soaking up with your shield at close range so you can get a lot of them. He does a little blood circle animation before he does this, so you can use that as your warning to get the shield ready. He also does a leaping strike that I think does a debuff. I'm not sure what the debuff does exactly, but I'm sure it's not good. He also does a series of charges, and I think the trick to avoiding these is just pausing just for a moment, a brief moment, and running away right before he charges so that he's charging where you were instead of where you're going, if that makes sense. Now, I didn't do super great at avoiding any of these mechanics. The shield, the swirly shield one, I kind of got figured out, but the rest of them, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here. Skeletons helped out for this one by giving him just another target to focus on, so he's charging at them and not me. Styx also sends out these big red orbs full of bats. I'm not totally sure what happens if these hit you. I'm assuming at least they do damage. They might explode or something. And I think those are all of his like main first phase attacks. And while he's doing all of this, of course, you have to dodge the dragon fire that is being dropped every so often. Then at 50%, phase 2. And this is the part that sucks, and it sucks even worse on single player because everything is focused on you. While fighting Styx, he will summon a couple of gargoyles. I think he does leave for a little bit, Styx, so you get like a tiny grace period to fight the gargoyles where he's not still hurling shit at you. But remember Beatrice on Brutal, the tailor, the old woman that we chased down. This is basically her, but you'll have more than one probably in addition to fighting the boss. So they do pretty huge melee swipes. They do these jumps, these leaps and jumps. Some of the leaps have a bigger AoE and some of them have a smaller AoE. And one thing that will happen, I believe, is that if they get to low health, they can heal up a bit. And they'll do this like animation. And if I remember right, I luckily did not hit this point during this fight, but I've hit it with other gargoyles. But they'll like stop and they'll become immune for a bit while they heal up. So I'm pretty sure these ones will do that. So you got to take them out quickly. So save your bite, maybe bring some Draculan blood so you can have more biting power on this one. But don't let them hang out at low health for very long. Really burn them down. And if you have, two, focus one of them and then focus the other one. I also think these guys were extra tough for me on this because they're not V-Bloods, as far as I know. So they're probably at the plus 40% multiplier because I did not turn down the multiplier on the normal mobs because I feel like they're at a good difficulty. So they're at the higher they're at the higher difficulty compared to the bosses, relatively speaking. But they were tough. The best way I've found to fight the gargoyles is to always be moving around to try and get out of the way of those big slashes, those big leaps. I did about 4 or 5 attempts on Styx, mostly getting destroyed by the gargoyles, and then I took a little break. I didn't feel like I was making progress, so I took a break to do a rift incursion and farm some more research materials. I was hoping to unlock some different gear that I could try, and I was really dreading fighting Styx, so I took a fairly long break to do some resource farming. I went into town in human form and I bought some books and some seeds. I did get caught and die once and had to run back. I do love my little human form though. I know I've talked about it before. He's just so cute with his little coat on. Then I got a blood moon, and unfortunately I did have to step away at the beginning of the blood moon. But when I got back, I didn't want to waste the rest of it, so I got my shit together as fast as I could, which was not as fast as I hoped, and went back to fight Styx again. And one of the bonuses of the blood moon is quicker movement speed, which really helps with these gargoyles. Unfortunately, while I had a really good attempt on Styx, I ran out of time for a second attempt and I did die during the blood moon, so not a win, but I was doing a lot better. And then I stopped to craft some of the Grim Knight armor, which is what I was going for to help me get some more health, I think. I think that's the one with health, and it's a little bit tankier. And I also swapped out my necklace for a different one to see if that helped. You know, these stats don't look like huge differences, but I think they do actually impact the fight pretty good. So if you're having trouble with a certain fight, look at the gear stats and think about whether something else would be more helpful. Like if you're using a lot of spell damage and you can't do very much weapon damage, use the mage armor, you know? Maybe it'll help. This fight went a lot better, and I think a huge portion of it was just how quickly I got the gargoyles down. I really focused them one at a time. I hit all my skill shots, and I was able to use my bites to get them down before they could heal and almost before Styx returned. So I almost had no overlap between fighting gargoyles and fighting Styx, which is really good. And this attempt ended up being my successful one. He also does something near the end of the fight that I don't think I saw during any of my other attempts. I don't know if he just does this at low health or if I just missed it, but he sort of sat in the middle and summoned a bunch of bat clouds, and it got really dark. But I was able to get him down, get my V blood, and like I said, this guy unlocks very important things. The first is bat form, which is not critical for most things. We do need it to get to one of the bosses, but it's just really useful and it's very quick. Do not use bat form during the day. Even if you're in a place that doesn't do sun damage, like if you're in Mortium, you still cannot fly in bat form during the day. You will die. Okay, I've warned you. He also lets you craft onyx tears, which are required for some of these endgame pieces. And one of the most important of these pieces is the blood key, which is a necklace that you need to have to fight Dracula. You don't have to wear it as equipment to get to the Dracula fight, but you will need it in your inventory, or you literally can't go through the door to Dracula's castle. So if you're on a server with multiple people, every person who's fighting will need their own blood key to get into the fight. So just be aware of that. These onyx tears are a little bit annoying because of the power cores. You only need to make one, and then you can just keep that one for the rest of the game, so that's fine. And then you will need to grab some blood crystals here before you leave, or come back and mine a whole bunch of them, because you need those to make the onyx tears as well. And then the blood key is the last thing he unlocks, so you can see what that makes and get to work. You may notice I skipped past Belmont in the list. This was completely by accident. I literally just forgot about him. I don't know why. In all of my other runs, my groups fought Belmont as part of like the final 4 bosses instead of like where he is in the list. And my brain just connected to that pattern. And so I forgot him. He doesn't have his level listed here, so I wasn't really sure what's going on with that. But we'll come back to him. But you will notice, the keen-eyed viewers, that I have this extra silhouette on my list that I'm just not talking about. So that's Belmont. Alright, I did a ton of crafting around this time, and frankly I think I was stalling because the next boss I had to face was scary. I charged more batteries, I farmed some more blood crystals, I made some more onyx tears, and I also started in on some of my epic ancestral weapons, an axe, and some slashers. I made about 10,000 pieces of paper for my research, and some more potions. And then finally I set out to face Gorecrusher the Behemoth. He is the big scary beast in the Cursed Forest that I think I did see a few times, but fortunately in this run I haven't accidentally aggroed him. In some past runs we've run into him before and it did not end well. But he is a boss kind of like Krieg, where he wanders and he also has like a home base that he returns to sometimes. I really tried to catch him in his cave home because I thought it would be easier to fight him without all the forest mobs running around. But I waited and waited and waited, and I think he was just getting farther away. So I went out to face him in the forest, pretending to be a lot more brave than I am. The Gorecrusher is a big monster, a big beast, and he does a lot of smashing and a lot of charging. It can be difficult to properly avoid a lot of his moves in the forest because of the dense trees and the rocks, so stay on your toes and use your shields when you can. I don't think that the big AoEs can be shielded, but I think the smaller ones and the little swipes can. Gorecrusher does some long AoEs. He will also smash his fist into the ground at close range. He does some big jumps with a pretty big AoE around them, and he will charge towards you multiple times. And I think you can shield the charge as well. And then at some point in the fight, he will take a little rest and summon a bunch of ghostly forest creatures. You can't hit him until he becomes corporeal again, which I'm not sure. I think it's on a timer, but it might also just happen when you kill the forest creatures. And then sometime after 50%, he will do a couple of things. It seemed like he did things at different parts of the fight during different attempts for me, but at one point he will turn into a ghost and summon a bunch of orbs, like the Cyril orbs, that will hurt you if they hit you. And then another thing that he will do is that he will split into two Gorecrushers, one like corporeal Gorecrusher and one ghostly one, and you will have to fight them both at the same time. I think this is kind of the big finale of the fight, so I think he does this typically closer to the end of the fight. And as you might guess, this last part is the part I struggled with the most. It's because of the mobility in this forest, and also just having to pay attention to two different bosses that both can do a lot of damage to you. So it's just twice as difficult as fighting one Gorecrusher. My advice for this is the same as with any other intense fight. Just really focus on staying alive first. You know, watch out for the damage areas, the AoE telegraphs, and focus on moving out of the way before you focus on doing damage. Because if you can stay alive, you can get your little hits in, you can do your little spells. If you've got skeletons, they'll pick away at the bosses. But if you are getting caught in the AoEs, you're done. So that's always my recommendation, is to try and learn the rhythm of the fight. After maybe 6 or 7 attempts, I finally got him. I'm a little sad I never got to fight him in his cave, but I guess there's always next time. Okay, and then we have a pattern here. So Gorecrusher is kind of a big Yeti looking guy, and like all the other Yeti looking guys, he unlocks the last type of leather, bat leather. You will need the advanced tannery to make it, so I replaced my little tannery with the big one, and I got to work. The wild thing is that you need bat hide and pristine leather to make the bat leather, so I guess we're just like stapling the bat hide onto the pristine leather. I don't know. Some of the crafting recipes in this game are just bizarre. I started having to take longer breaks between play sessions around this time because my work got really out of control, busy. You'll have heard about this if you visit my Twitch stream, but I've just been working a lot of overtime, working late, generally just being completely wiped out. But I kept going. If I seem like I'm coming back to this super rusty with every fight, that is why. But after doing a bunch more vampire chores, about a week later, I was able to face the next boss on our list, General Valencia the Depraved. This fight is kind of fun, and I think the arena is really cool. Valencia is in Mortium. She's got a little recessed arena with a spooky platform in the center. That's going to be important. She uses a spear, and if you use the spear moves, you'll recognize a lot of these probably. She does a big cone-shaped AoE of spears in front of her, and a little shield move where she like spins them in front. And I don't know if this one like counters or if it just blocks, but it's not helpful to hit her during that shield move. She does like to be in close range of her target, so skeletons can help draw her attention during this fight and keep her away from you a little bit. And pretty soon after the fight begins, she will bring in the Iron Maiden. You do not want to be in front of this thing ever, especially not when it starts to charge up its moves. So she'll spawn in this Iron Maiden, she'll keep attacking you, and then the Iron Maiden will do its moves. So it will shoot out some grappling hooks in a cone in front of it, and these will try to pull you in. And it will also do a big AoE that also does a grab, and its goal is to trap you inside the chokey. If you get caught inside the Iron Maiden, it sort of chews you up. And I don't know if that's always a kill. I feel like it is usually a kill at the very least. And then you can destroy the Iron Maiden, and you probably should. But don't get too comfortable because she will summon it again after a little bit. So you can get rid of it, or you can sort of just keep dodging around the back. I think I've seen people go the whole fight without killing the Iron Maiden, though I'm not totally sure on that. I personally like to get it out of the way, just so I don't have to think about it for a little bit. But in addition to the big cone AoE with the spear, Valencia will also do a big rain of smaller AoEs. Like, I don't know if this is like the crossbow move. It kind of looks like that, a rain of arrows. She'll do a grappling move of her own, which is super long. It has a pretty crazy range, so you don't want to stand in front of her directly because you might get grappled. And then she also does a leap with a big AoE around it. Definitely try to avoid that. And I've seen a lot of people soaking up the spear cone with a shield, and I think this is a good idea because you can get so many shield charges. I've seen people use the ice shield on this fight to do tons of damage, kind of a like, why are you hitting yourself strategy with the ice shield. And this fight was actually a surprise first try brutal boss. But I did have just like the tiniest sliver of health near the end of the fight, so it was a close call. This was not an easy first try by any means. And I got caught by the second Iron Maiden a little bit and took some damage, so that's kind of why I got so low, but I managed to dodge enough of her moves to get her down before she could get me. Valencia unlocks the best jewels, the highest tier jewels. I thought Merwin did that, but I guess they were a tier lower. These are definitely the best jewels. And she also unlocks Shadow Weave, which is a fabric made out of ghost thread and silk, which might be the least stupid fabric recipe that this game has, because you're kind of like, you're like doing some sewing with sewing materials instead of making thread out of flower pollen or whatever. But now we are at the last 4 bosses before the big Dracula fight. So we are going to stop here, a slightly shorter video, but only because I've skipped a lot of the rift incursions and a lot of the vampire chores I've been doing. It's not really a very grindy game, but there are some things that you need to have on hand to do a lot of this late game crafting that I wanted to have ready. And I also have a lot of game sessions around this time where I just don't have the time to do a lot of boss attempts, so I just did some farming as like a fun chill thing to do. So a lot of that I clipped out for editing purposes, but know that I am doing it, and I'm also sending my servants out every day, well, most days at least, but I've saved the exciting stuff for you. But I'm so excited for a lot of these upcoming fights. These are some of my favorites in the entire game. I feel like they really hit their stride and designed some fun and challenging boss mechanics that take place in really cool arenas. But that's a little teaser for next time. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe, because I will be back soon with another video as we draw closer to the grand finale, and I hope to see you there. Bye bye!